Something strange happens after 40.
So, let's talk about that strangeness, you and I. We're going to look beyond what feels like a plateau and really explore why professional growth changes so much after a certain point in our careers.
Well, let's start with the facts, shall we? You're more experienced now. There's no question about it. You have seen things. You've navigated situations that your younger self just hadn't encountered yet.
And because of that, you understand the system you're in so much better. You see the unwritten rules, the politics, the way things really work. That's some hard-won wisdom right there.
And yet, despite all that experience, despite all that wisdom, does growth feel, well, slower? Does that forward momentum you were so used to feel like it's started to fade a little?
You know, nobody really says this out loud. It's not something you bring up in a team meeting, but so many accomplished professionals, they quietly feel a little bit stuck. If that sounds familiar, I just want you to hear this. You are definitely not alone.
Look, I'm sharing this with you not based on some theory I read in a book. This comes from over 25 years of watching this play out time and time again in my own career and in the careers of so many others. This feeling, it's a real pattern.
And here is the most important thing I hope you take away. That feeling is not a personal failing. You haven't lost your touch, you haven't lost your edge. It's the result of a fundamental systemic shift in what growth even means at this stage. Okay, so let's try to understand this shift together. Let's really get to the bottom of the changing nature of growth and maybe see why the old map doesn't quite seem to fit the new landscape.
The core of it really is right here. The game has changed, but it feels like nobody handed you the new rulebook. The things that drove your growth before aren't the same things that will carry you forward now. The very definition of success is different. Just think back for a moment. Early on, growth was something you could see, wasn't it? It was about acquiring skills, getting that next promotion, following a pretty clear path. Your job was to prove what you, as an individual, could contribute.
But now, things are different. The drivers of growth are much more subtle, much less obvious, but honestly, they're so much more powerful. It stops being about climbing and it starts being about deepening your influence, navigating real complexity, and guiding others with the kind of strategic insight only you have.
This is probably the best way I've ever heard it put. The career ladder, well, it becomes a lattice. You see, progress isn't just about up anymore. It's about moving sideways, connecting different parts of the organization, and strengthening the entire structure from your unique spot within it. So, if the game has changed, we have to change how we look at the board. We need a new vantage point, a new way to think about what feels like a plateau, so we can see it not as an end, but as something else entirely.
And this is maybe the single most important thought I can offer you. That feeling of being stuck, please don't see it as a stop sign. Think of it more like a prompt, a gentle nudge from your own career, just asking you to pause for a moment and reevaluate.
You know, we can actually give this new stage a name. Let's call it deep expertise. It's that unique value you have now, the ability to see the patterns, to solve the truly messy problems, and to guide the people who are still learning the ropes. And that is a form of growth that you will never ever find in a job title.
Now, the point here isn't to give you some 5-step action plan. Far from it. This is just a simple framework for your own quiet reflection. First, just acknowledge the shift is real. It's not just you. Second, give yourself permission to redefine what growth means to you now. And third, just start to notice where are the new places your deep expertise can make a real difference.
So I'll leave you with this one last question to carry with you. What if this place, this phase that feels like a plateau, isn't an endpoint at all? What if it's actually a platform, a stable, elevated base from which you can launch the most meaningful and impactful work of your life?
You know, there's this point that comes in a lot of careers, and it often happens without any big announcement, where the ground just kind of starts to shift under your feet. It's not some big crisis, not at all. It's more of a quiet, unsettling feeling that things are just different now. So today, let's talk about that feeling. We'll call it the mid-career shift, and we're going to try to understand it with some clarity and hopefully a lot less anxiety. So let me ask you something just straight up. Do you ever feel invisible at work? I mean, you're still there, you're still working hard, you're obviously still very good at what you do, but have you started to notice that the attention, the energy of the whole place, it just seems to be flowing somewhere else? Like the spotlight is moved and you're not quite in it anymore? This quote, wow, it just captures the feeling so perfectly, doesn't it? It doesn't feel like failure. It feels like invisibility creeping in. See, it's not that you've done anything wrong or that you've suddenly failed at your job. It's more of this gradual sense that you're just becoming less seen, less central to the big conversations. And look, if that's resonating with you right now, I really want you to hear this. You are not alone in feeling this way. Not by a long shot. Right. So this feeling, it doesn't just show up one morning out of the blue. It's really the result of a lot of small, quiet, almost unnoticeable changes in your work life. So let's walk through some of the common signs that might tell you you're entering this new phase. Think about this for a second. Maybe those really challenging projects, the ones that truly stretch your abilities, maybe you've noticed they're being offered to other people more often. Or how about this one? The calls from senior leaders, the decision makers. They used to be a regular thing, but now they're few and far between. And then you look around and you see your younger colleagues getting a lot of the visibility, a lot of the spotlight for their work, while you're still working just as hard, but your own consistent, solid performance just feels, well, taken for granted. Any one of these is like a small paper cut, right? But when they all happen together, they can create this really deep sense of being overlooked. Okay, so if any of that sounds familiar, the next logical question is, well, what does it all mean? And it is so easy to internalize these things, isn't it? To let them start feeding this little voice of self-doubt in your head. But before we even think about going down that road, it is absolutely essential that we just pause, take a step back, and look at the bigger picture here. All right, this next part is maybe the most important thing to hear. What you might be experiencing. This is not a personal failing. Let me say that again. It is not about you. It's a reflection of a changing environment. You have to remember, the landscape of a long career, it's not a straight line on a flat field. It evolves, it changes, and the ground beneath your feet is going to shift. So, the very first thing to really get your head around is that this experience is incredibly common. You are on a path that so many other people have walked. So many successful, experienced, brilliant professionals find themselves in this exact same spot. This isn't some private struggle that's unique to you. Think of it more like a common chapter in the book of a long and meaningful career. And let's be crystal clear on this next point. This feeling has absolutely nothing to do with your competence. Nothing. Your skills haven't suddenly vanished. Your decades of experience haven't lost their value. We have to dismantle that fear, the fear that maybe you've lost it, because that fear is the single biggest obstacle to thinking clearly about what's really happening and what you want to do next. So how about we reframe this whole thing? This isn't an ending. It's not a stop sign. It's a transition. You're simply moving from one phase of your career into another one. And here's the key. The rules that helped you succeed in the first half, they're just not the same rules that are going to define your success and your impact in the second half. And once you recognize that, well, that's what leads us to the path forward. And listen, this path is not about frantically trying to get back to the way things were. It's not about scrambling. It's about calmly, deliberately understanding the new landscape you're in now. It's about drawing a new map for a new territory. Which, of course, brings us to the big question. So, why? Why does this happen? If it's not about our competence, then what is the fundamental change that's taking place in the world around us at work? Well, to understand it and to really navigate this next chapter with confidence, we need to talk about how the rules change. You see, the first half of your career, that's usually about proving yourself. It's about getting skills, showing what you can do, making your individual contribution known. But the second half, that's different. It becomes about leveraging wisdom. It's about mentoring and guiding and influencing people in a way that doesn't rely on your official title. And really getting your head around that shift from doing to guiding, that's the real first step on the path forward. Hello and welcome. Let's talk about something that many of us start to feel mid-career, but it's something we don't often say out loud. It's this subtle feeling that the rules have changed somehow. This isn't about trying to work harder or climb the ladder faster. No, this is about something different. It's about learning to navigate a new landscape with wisdom. So let me ask you, have you ever felt that the rules of work have just shifted? I mean, think about it for a moment. Do the things that brought you so much success in your 20s and 30s, do they feel a bit less effective now? It's not usually some big sudden change, right? It's more like a quiet whisper that tells you the game itself is different. And what's strange is, you're more capable now than you've ever been, but the path forward, it can seem a lot less clear. And I really want you to hear this. That feeling is completely, 100% normal. And this really gets to the heart of the matter. You see, as we gain more and more experience, our organizations start to expect something different from us. They expect maturity, they expect wisdom, a whole different kind of contribution. But here's the challenge, and it's a big one. These new expectations are almost never said out loud. There's no handbook for this next phase of your career. It's like a silent rule change, and it can leave you feeling like, well, like you missed some really important memo. Okay, so let's look at what this fundamental shift actually looks like. Early on, right, in the first part of our careers, growth is all about energy. It's about your ability to just get stuff done. But later on, that currency changes. It becomes about leverage, how you can create a huge impact without just putting in more and more hours. The same goes for output. It moves from just raw output, the sheer volume of what you can produce, to judgment. Suddenly, the most important question isn't how much did you do, it's how good were your decisions. And finally, it shifts from pure speed to influence. Your value isn't about being the fastest person in the room anymore. It's about your ability to guide others to shape the strategy. It's a really profound change when you think about it. You're moving from doing the work to shaping the work. And this quote, this really reframes the whole situation perfectly. The problem isn't your age. It's not about getting older. The real problem, the friction you might be feeling, comes from playing the old game by the old rules. You're still trying to win with energy, output, and speed, but the game now values leverage, judgment, and influence. It's almost like you're trying to win a game of chess, but you're still playing by the rules of checkers. See, the issue isn't with you, the player. It's just a simple misunderstanding of the game that's right in front of you now. Now, this is where so many of us fall into a trap, and it's a completely understandable one. Think about it. When you feel like you're not moving forward, what's your first instinct? It's to double down on what worked before, right? You put in more hours, you try to increase your output, you try to go faster, but what you're really doing is trying to solve a new problem with an old solution. And that path, well, it almost always leads to burnout because you're pushing with all your might on levers that just aren't connected to real meaningful growth anymore. So this brings us to a final question, just for you to reflect on. And this isn't meant to create any pressure, not at all. It's just about finding a little bit of clarity. When you look at your work today, which rules are you really playing by? Are your day-to-day efforts still aligned with that old game of energy and output? Or are they starting to align with the new game of leverage and influence? There's absolutely no need to rush to an answer. Just letting yourself see things clearly. That is often the most powerful first step you can possibly take.
It's a question a lot of us find ourselves quietly asking at some point. You've done everything right, you've worked hard, you've built a solid career, and yet things can start to feel a little stuck. If that sounds at all familiar, I want you to know you are absolutely not alone. It's a very common experience, and it's worth taking a calm moment to understand why it happens.
And here's the part that can be so confusing. The very things that got you here, being that go-to person, the one who always delivers, the reliable one, those same strengths can, believe it or not, start to box you in. The foundation you built your career on can eventually become a kind of comfortable cage.
So let's put a name to this. We can call it the reliability paradox. And just giving it a name, I think, helps. It takes some of the personal sting out of it and lets us look at it for what it is, a pattern.
Now, let's be perfectly clear. Early on in your career, being reliable was exactly the right strategy. It was your currency. Being the person everyone could count on was how you proved yourself, how you earned trust, how you got ahead. You played the game correctly.
But then, a shift starts to happen. It's usually so slow you barely even notice it. That reputation for being a safe pair of hands suddenly feels a little restrictive. The exciting, risky projects stop coming your way. You become so good at your job that people, well, they have a hard time picturing you doing anything else.
And this is where we find this very common pattern, what we can call the mid-career trap. Again, this isn't about some kind of personal failure. It's a structural challenge that many successful people face.
So what does this trap really mean? Well, it means you're seen as absolutely essential for keeping things running today. And that's a huge compliment to your skill and your dedication. The catch is, you might not be the first person they think of for shaping the future of the organization. You're essential, but maybe not seen as innovative.
So what does this look like day to day? Well, you might become too reliable, so predictable, that nobody thinks to ask you for a fresh perspective. You might find your days are completely filled with doing, with execution, leaving no space to think or strategize. And maybe, without even realizing it, you start to avoid risks because you have a valuable reputation to protect.
I really want to pause on this for a moment because if you take one thing away, it should be this. Being in this position is not a sign you've done something wrong. It's actually the opposite. It's often the result of being exceptionally good at your job for a very long time. It's simply what happens when a successful strategy has run its course.
Okay, so if being good at the job can lead to this place, what's the way forward? Well, it requires a shift in our thinking, a subtle one, but a really powerful one. It's about moving from focusing on what is expected to focusing on what makes us distinctive.
This little chart here really clarifies things. See, being dependable keeps you safe, and that's good. But being distinctive is what creates movement. Dependability is visible to your team. Distinctiveness is visible to the whole organization. One fulfills expectations, the other creates totally new value. The focus shifts from just execution to contributing real strategy and insight.
Here's another way to think about it. Early on, your dependability might have been what made you a star player. But later in a career, it just becomes the baseline. It's the ticket to the game. It gets you in the door, but it's no longer the thing that helps you win.
Let's just let that sink in for a second. After 40, being dependable is expected. Being distinctive is what moves careers. Really understanding that one idea can completely reframe how you think about your work and your growth from this point on.
Now, my hope is that understanding all this doesn't create anxiety. Quite the opposite. The goal is to reduce it by giving you a clearer map of the territory. It's about empowering you to start asking a new, and I think, much more interesting question about your own future.
And please, let me be very clear about this. Nobody is saying you should stop being reliable. Goodness no. The trust and the reputation you have spent decades building is an incredible asset. This is not about starting over. It's about building on top of that strong foundation. It's an evolution, not a revolution.
And that brings us to the real question to ponder. It's not about chasing trends or learning the latest buzzwords. It's a much deeper question about how you can take all of your experience, all of your wisdom, and bring it to the table in a way that is uniquely, distinctively you. So, what does that look like? That's the question worth spending some time with.
You know, there comes a time in every career, a point where the path forward just looks different. It's not about slowing down, not at all. It's about a really deep shift in where you place your focus. Let's talk about that evolution. From just pure intensity to something much more lasting, much more powerful, relevance. So let's just start with a question. And I'd like you to just sit with it for a moment. Really think about it. What if the goal is no longer to work harder? What if the way forward isn't about more hours or more hustle, but something else entirely?
For a lot of us, especially in those early years, our careers were built on pure, raw intensity. That's what got us noticed, right? It's what drove our success. But there's a kind of a hidden trap in that way of thinking, one that a lot of people fall into as they get more and more experience.
If you've ever had that feeling like you're running faster and faster but you're just staying in the same place, I want you to know that's not just you. It's an incredibly common feeling. The very engine, that drive and effort that got you so far in your 20s and 30s, well, it's strange, but that can become the very thing that makes you feel stuck later on. It isn't your fault. It's just that the rules of the game have changed.
So, if that old model of just pure effort stops giving you the same results, then what does? Well, this brings us to a really fundamental shift in how we should be thinking about our own professional growth.
When we're starting out, growth feels pretty simple, doesn't it? It's almost directly connected to our intensity, our effort. We learn things, we do things, we produce. But as we mature in our careers, our value shifts. It stops being about just the energy we put in, and it starts being about the relevance of what we contribute and the quality of our judgment.
And here it is. This is the central idea I want you to hold on to. After 40, growth comes from relevance, not intensity. Now listen, this is not a pass to coast or to take it easy. It's about being strategic. It's about making sure that all that experience you've worked so hard for turns into wisdom that people can't do without.
Okay, so let's make this really practical.
Because, understanding the idea is one thing, but putting it into practice, that means we have to consciously change how we show up every day. There are 4 key strategic shifts that can really help us navigate this change.
We're going to walk through each of these 4 shifts. Think of them as a roadmap, really, to get out of that intensity trap and move toward a much more impactful way of working. We're talking about shifting to decision-making, leading with your judgment, mentoring others, and finally, choosing your battles wisely.
So, the first shift, this is all about letting your role evolve. For years, maybe your biggest value was your ability to just get things done, flawlessly. Now, your greater value lies in using all that experience to see the whole board, to help shape the what and the why of the work, not just the how.
And this one follows right from the first. Instead of aiming to be the person who works the latest, aim to be the person whose opinion people seek out when things get complicated. Good judgment? Well, that's just the quiet result of years and years of experience, of getting things right, and, just as importantly, of getting things wrong. Cultivate that. Let that become what you're known for.
At this stage, your impact isn't just measured by what you do yourself. It's multiplied through the people you help guide. When you mentor someone, when you advise and influence your team, you are scaling your wisdom. You are literally lifting up the entire organization. And believe me, that is one of the most lasting and meaningful contributions you can possibly make. And this 4th shift, this one really gets to the heart of the whole strategy, your energy, your attention. It's a finite resource. It's precious. It's just not wise to spend it on every little fire. Instead, you use your experience to spot the few places where your input is going to make the biggest difference, and you focus your energy right there.
So as we start to bring all these ideas together, it is so important to understand that this is not a call to do less. Not at all. It is a call for a smarter, more leveraged way of using your skills and your energy.
Let's just be absolutely clear on this, because if you take one thing away, I want it to be this. The goal is not to work harder. It is to work differently. That's it. It's the quiet shift from brute force to finesse, from raw effort to a really refined kind of impact. It's about honoring the experience you've earned and using it in the most effective way you can.
And so I'll just leave you with this one thought to carry with you. When you look at your work, at your team, at the challenges you're facing right now, what is the one important battle that truly needs your wisdom and your attention? Because choosing it, that's the first step. Let's talk about something that we don't often get a chance to discuss, this idea of strategic longevity. Looking at your career not as some frantic sprint to an imaginary finish line, but as a long journey, one that evolves and asks for a more thoughtful approach as we go along.
And maybe you've been feeling this lately, a quiet sense that the old rules just don't quite fit anymore. That the things that used to drive you, like chasing the next promotion or just the frantic pace of it all, well, they don't seem to hold the same appeal. It's a very common feeling, and actually, it's a really important one to pay attention to.
So let's try and reframe this, shall we? This feeling, it's not a crisis, it's a transition. It's really just a sign that your own definition of growth is maturing. Because, well, you're not the same person who started this journey all those years ago. The old rules just don't apply anymore.
When we're starting out, the strategy is all about accumulation, isn't it? We say yes to everything to build up a whole range of skills and contacts. But that approach has a limit. Real, lasting growth comes when you shift your focus from quantity to quality. It stops being about just collecting experiences, and it starts being about carefully choosing them, asking yourself, does this specifically help me deepen my craft? Does it align with the kind of impact I truly want to make?
This idea of a single career ladder that everyone climbs, it's a bit of a myth for experienced professionals. That whole metaphor just kind of falls apart. Mature careers don't just go up. They branch out, almost like a strong tree. And each branch can represent a new specialization, a different way to have influence. So, when your path starts to look a little different from everyone else's, that's not a sign that you're lost. It's actually a sign of strength, of real complexity.
That constant sense of urgency we all feel in our early years, that need to be faster, to get ahead, it naturally starts to fade a bit. And you know what? That's a good thing. The focus shifts from sheer speed to sustainability. The main question isn't how fast can I go anymore? It becomes, what am I building that will actually last?
And this whole transition, it really marks a fundamental change in our mindset. It's about moving away from that almost frantic energy of chasing things and moving toward the quiet confidence that comes from really truly deepening your craft.
This really lays it all out, doesn't it? In the early race, the focus is on being faster, but that evolves into taking a longer view in the later journey. The need for constant climbing matures into the focused art of deepening your expertise. And maybe most importantly, you shift from anxiously chasing after every single opportunity to calmly positioning yourself to be chosen for the ones that really matter.
And this right here, this brings us to the very heart of it. This is about redefining what ambition even means. It's not about losing your ambition at all, but about transforming it into something much more powerful and, frankly, more sustainable.
Just let that sink in for a second. After 40, the goal is not to chase every opportunity, it's to be chosen for the right ones. Now, this isn't about being passive and just waiting around. It's the exact opposite. It's the ultimate strategic outcome. It's the result of years spent deliberately building a reputation, a body of work, and a depth of skills so undeniable that the best, most interesting opportunities actually start seeking you out.
And that really is the whole point. To build a career that grows out of a place of clear, deliberate strategy instead of a place of anxiety. So the question to leave you with is this. What's one small thing you can do this week to stop chasing and start building the kind of reputation that gets you chosen?